السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We are still talking about Prophet Ayyoub alayhi salam. He suffered a lot and he is famous as the paragon of patience, because although he suffered a lot, he didn't complain to anyone. Even when his wife suggested to pray to Allah, he told her, I had been healthy for 70 years, so why can't I be grateful to Allah for those years and wait what Allah will have decided for me? So the more Ayyoub suffered, the more he became stronger. So all those trials would only make him stronger and more practicing in terms of his religion. Because sometimes some people, even some righteous people, whenever they go through a lot of afflictions, they tend to complain a lot. Some people sometimes think, why is this happening to me? Yet I'm always worshiping Allah, I'm always believing in Him. Why me? Why not someone else? So if you start asking such questions, your word will diminish. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be proactive even when you're suffering from problems. So moreover, they increased in patient perseverance and continuous, he and his wife, and continuous gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, expecting His generous rewards. So the more they suffered, the more they would persevere, and the more they would expect rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the suffering itself, there is reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah tells us in the Quran, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with those who patiently persevere. So if you want to be with Allah, if you want the companionship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be among those who patiently persevere. And this was what Ayyoub alayhi salam and his wife did. Patiently persevering for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this is actually what happened with Ayyoub and his wife. So there are two quotes that I really liked. Don't let your happiness be controlled by something you can't control. Don't let your happiness be controlled by something you can't control. You know, even sometimes when I talk to atheists, I tell them that even if you speak ill of God Almighty, even if you don't believe in His existence, when you suffer, your complaints won't take the suffering away. Your disbelief won't take the suffering away. So in all ways, you will suffer. Whether you believe in Allah, whether you don't, you will suffer. Your disbelief will not take the suffering away. So if you are clever, this suffering should bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the only one who can remove you from that affliction. So do not let your happiness be controlled by something you can't control. You know, in psychology, they say there is something that happens which triggers your emotions, an event. Then there is how you react to it. So there is a space in between what happens and your reaction. This space, you control it. You can decide to react negatively, and you can decide to react positively. If you react negatively, it's to your detriment. If you react positively, it might change the events that are happening around you. There's another quote. Patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. So not only, yes, the ability to wait is good, but to keep a good attitude. You know, sometimes some people, when they suffer a lot, they don't talk to anyone. They always yell, they shout, they complain. If you happen to do a small mistake, they will capitalize on it to criticize you maliciously because of their suffering. So it seems as though you are the cause of their suffering. So little do they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying and testing them. So indeed, Ayyoub alayhi salam, he's the paragon of patience. As such, people always refer to him when talking about patience, especially the Muslims. When they talk about patience, they say Sabr Ayyoub, like the patience of Ayyoub alayhi salam. So he became an epitome of patience to those who are suffering, even to those who are not suffering, because we don't have guarantees that we will live a life without problems. Time might come when you will suffer, and when you suffer, you remember Ayyoub and other prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is also in the Bible a detailed account of Ayyoub's suffering and the adversity that befell on him. It explains how his wealth and property vanished one after another, also in the Bible. However, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the best knowledge of all the minute details of what exactly happened to him. You know, in most cases, we are quoting opinions of some historians, some exegetes of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows exactly what did happen, but we are not prevented from sharing the information from which we can learn a lot from the life of Ayub and the lives of other prophets and messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So As-Sudi says, one of the interpreters of the Quran, on his part, As-Sudi, this is his opinion, he says his flesh, the flesh of Ayub, would continuously fall off his body until nothing remained except the bones, muscles, and nerves. We said before, his flesh would fall off and all the parts and limbs of his body were affected except the heart and the tongue. The heart so that he could keep the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, strengthening his belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the mouth so that he could always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save him, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help him, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve him of this pain. Here As-Sudi says, bones, muscles, and nerves were the ones that remained. In other words, as the body got afflicted, got some infected, except the nerves, muscles, and the bones. And actually, Tony isn't here. There is something he will read to us about the benefits of the bones, muscles, and nerves. We're waiting for you, Tony, to read to us the benefits of bones, muscles, and nerves. As Sudi said, his body was afflicted except the bones, muscles, and nerves. So what do they say, scientists, about this?
The human musculoskeletal system, also known as the locomotor system, and previously the activity system, is an organ system that gives humans the ability to move using their muscular and skeletal systems. The musculoskeletal system provides form, support, stability, and movement to the body. Every time you sprint through the halls because you're late for class, score against your opponents during a game, or shoot pool with friends, you're using your bones, muscles, and joints. Without these important body parts, you'd be seriously sidelined. You'd be unable to sit, stand, walk, or do any of the activities you do every day. From our head to our toes, our bones provide support for our bodies and help form our shape. The skull protects the brain and forms the shape of our face. The spinal cord, pathway for messages between the brain and the body, is protected by a backbone or spinal column. The ribs form a cage that shelter the heart, lungs, liver, and spleen, and the pelvis helps protect the bladder, intestines, and in girls, the reproductive organs. Although they're very light, bones are strong enough to support our entire weight. As for joints, joints are where two bones meet. They make the skeleton flexible. Without them, movement would be impossible. Muscles are also necessary for movement. They're the masses of tough, elastic tissue that pull our bones when we move. Together, our bones, muscles, and joints, along with tendons, ligaments, and cartilage, form our musculoskeletal system and enable us to do everyday physical activities.
Yeah, can you read to us again, what do the ribs do? What do they protect? The ribs.
The ribs form a cage that shelters the heart,
lungs,
liver, and
spleen. Okay, heart, lungs, liver, and spleen. You know, why I asked you to read this is that there is a lady, a Christian lady, who approached me, and she was critical of Islam because of what she read, how Islam talks about women. She read a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which the Prophet ﷺ says that a woman was created from a curved rib. From a curved rib. So if you straighten it, you will break it. So you have to stay with her while she's curved. So she said, you know, you Muslims, you don't respect women. How could Prophet Muhammad say that a woman was created from a curved rib? So I asked her two questions. I said, the first one, who told you that everything in order to function properly, it has to be straight? Not everything in order to function properly has to be straight. For example, if you drop something under a table, you have to bend in order to pick it. You can't be straight and then pick it. Number one. Number two, I asked her, the ribs, what do they protect? She said the same. They protect the heart, lungs, and spleen. So heart, lungs, kidney, and spleen. So I told her the Prophet meant that a woman is more emotional in a way that she protects her sweetheart. So she's like a curved rib, protecting the husband, protecting the children, and protecting the family. This is why she's more emotional than the man. So, yes.
This story in the Bible that God created Eve from the rib of Adam.
From the rib of Adam. So it's also a story in the Bible.
So the rib came from Adam.
Yes, the rib of Adam. Yeah, so she's created from the rib of Adam.
Not a rib, the rib from Adam.
The rib from Adam. So actually, the Prophet said she was created from a rib, but the interpreters of the Hadith and the Quran, they also say from the rib of Adam. So, and actually when Allah talks about women, He says, they are from you. So in other words, Eve was created from the rib of Adam. They are part of us. So even when we read books that are entitled, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, we're not from different planets. Maybe it was allegorical, but we are from the same source. As such, we shouldn't mistreat one another. Yes?
Another interesting fact in nature, there isn't straight lines. In nature, it's curves and spirals.
Yes, you're right. And actually, this is exactly what I told her. Yeah. And she did understand, alhamdulillah. So, Ayyoub alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his bones, muscles and nerves remain so that he could see it, move, and so that there should be a coordination between his brain and the heart. So he could be able to think about Allah, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, get some ideas, negotiate with his wife, ask questions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not completely make him impaired in such a way that he would not move, sit or stand. So his wife would bring ashes to spread under his body. Last time we talked about the benefits of wood ashes. Does anyone remember just one benefit? Tony read to us some benefits of wood ashes. There were actually 30 and more, but he read some of them. Does anyone remember just one of them? One of the benefits, yes, sister?
Smelling?
Yes, smelling. So the wood ashes would remove a bad smell. And I gave an example when I was invited in the desert, I ate the mendi, then I would wash my hands with soap. The smell wouldn't go until one of my hosts told me to go and wash either with sand or wood ashes, and it disappeared. So it removes the smell, wood ashes. What else? Yes, sister? It heals the wound. So it helps into the process of healing the wound. What else? Yes?
You can brush your teeth with it.
You can brush your teeth with it if you don't have toothpaste. Yes. Yes, sister?
It's good around plants, to put it around plants, around soil.
Yeah, it's good to put around plants and in the soil. Yes.
It stops the bleeding, by the way. I saw it by my eye.
It stops bleeding.
Once. Once also.
So
it stops diarrhea also.
It stops diarrhea. So there are many benefits from wood ashes. Remember, this is 1,000 years ago, before scientific research. She didn't have any laboratory. She didn't have any equipments to make any scientific research. But this was in her in her mind, that this could help the wounds of Ayyoub alayhi salam. So when the suffering continued for so long, she said, "O Ayyoub, if you pray to your Lord, He may relieve you of your suffering." So when she saw that Ayyoub had suffered for a long time, she suggested to him to pray to Allah to remove the suffering. Now again here, she's using the word Rabb, which is translated as Lord. But this is not the real translation of it, but for convenience, we just use it. So she uses the word Rabb. Conveniently, it's translated as Lord. But it has a lot of connotations. It's more than Lord. And actually, when we use the word Lord, it depends on the context. Sometimes the word Lord has some negative connotations. It depends on how you use it and where you use it. So Rabb, does anyone remember what it means exactly? Oh, one of the definitions of the word Rabb. Yes, Udayfa? Your cherisher. What else?
Sustainer.
Sustainer.
Creator.
Creator. So your creator, cherisher, sustainer. It covers all the 99 names of Allah. So Allah created for you before creating you. He protects you. He provides for you. So He is all in all for you. So this is why she used the word Rabb. Because Allah is your creator. He created for you. He's your protector, provider, cherisher, safe haven, among others. So she said, "O Ayyoub, if you pray to your Lord, He may relieve you of your suffering." He answered, "I had lived for 70 years in a healthy condition before the affliction. So can't I not bear all this patiently for Allah's sake for another 70 years? So 70 years, I was affluent, healthy, and I didn't complain of anything. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided to try me for another 70 years, why can't I be patient?" So, after hearing this, she felt pity for him and grieved. Now, what do we learn from this? Ayyoub is telling his wife, who suggested to him to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve him of this suffering, and he tells her, "I had lived healthy, wealthy for 70 years. Why can't I patiently persevere when Allah is trying and testing me for another 70 years? What do we learn from this?
Appreciating what He gave the name.
So we have to appreciate the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And actually, this is a lesson to many of us, mostly some women, not all women, some of them. You know, I've been invited to solve problems between couples, husband and wife. And the wife would say, since he married me, he didn't give me anything, he didn't help me, I'm doing everything by myself. When you talk to the man, he says, no, it's just maybe last week or 2 weeks that I didn't give her what she wanted. So they forget a lot, some of them, not all of them. So this is a lesson to us that even if someone does wrong you, you should still remember what he helped you with, what services he did for you. So you always learn how to appreciate the blessings, count the favors. What else do we learn from this? Ayyoub didn't complain to Allah. He said, I had been healthy and wealthy for 70 years. Why can't I bear another 70 years? Yes, brother?
Always wait on Allah no matter what situation.
So in whatever situation you are, you have to appreciate the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He has given you uncountable favors and blessings. And everything that happens to you, there is wisdom in it, and it's to your benefit, especially if you are a believer. What else do we learn from this? Yes, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. Whoever fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will find solutions for him, and He will provide for him from means which he does not expect. So Ayyoub told his wife that, I had been healthy and wealthy for 70 years. Why can't I bear this affliction for another 70 years? So she was sad because of the situation. At the same time, she didn't argue with him because she was also a believer. She approved of what he said. So after hearing this, she felt pity for him and grieved. She continued working as a maid for people in order to earn some small wages to feed her husband and to get something for her to eat. So imagine someone who was a wife of an affluent person, a handsome person, reaching a point of working as a maid. What does it teach us? It's not easy. Someone who was, probably she also had maids. She was affluent, her husband was affluent, rich, she had whatever she wanted. And now she is serving other people in order to get money to buy food for herself and for her husband. What do we learn from this? Yes, sir.
We should not be boastful or arrogant.
So we shouldn't be arrogant, because our condition might change anytime. In Arabic, they say, dawamul hal min al muhal. In other words, it's impossible to keep the status quo. Your condition might change anytime. What else do we learn from this? So imagine a wife of someone who was affluent, who used to have a lot of cattle, a lot of servants, a big land, and now serving others as a maid. Any other lessons that we learn? Yes?
We should not despise any job.
So we shouldn't look down upon any kind of work. So long as this work brings you licit provisions, not from haram, halal money. So do it. Don't say, how will people look at me if I work as a maid? What will people say about me if I work as a mechanic? You don't look down upon any type of job, because whatever you do, even before you get the rewards of that job, you get paid, you are actually worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by working hard. So you are, when you're doing your work, in whatever capacity you are worshipping Allah, and you are getting the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, you will get profits, you will get a salary, but at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for working hard. So this wife of a noble man who was a rich person, she reached a point whereby she was working as a maid in order to get small wages to be able to feed her husband and for her to get something to eat. Now, I have some quotes about positive thinking. Ayub alayhi salam, when he told his wife that I had been wealthy and healthy for 70 years, why can't I be patient for another 70 years? And actually, this is positive thinking. There is a book entitled The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent. In one of the quotes in that book, he says, I place this day, my life, my loved ones, my work in the Lord's hands. This is not a Muslim. There is no harm in the Lord's hands, only good. Whatever happens, whatever results, if I am in the Lord's hands, it is the Lord's will and it is good. So this is a non-Muslim, a book entitled The Power of Positive Thinking. You can get it in many bookshops. So he tells us this, that if you are in the will of Allah, you will be safe. The will of God, you will be safe. And actually he reached a point after extensive research that number one factor to make you positive is to believe in God. Another quote, he says, faith in God, belief, positive thinking, faith in other people, faith in yourself, faith in life. What do? This is the essence of the technique that teaches positive thinking. So you get positive thinking from faith in Allah, God, belief, positive thinking, faith in other people, faith in yourself, faith in life. This is the essence of the technique that will teach you positive thinking. If thou canst believe, it says, all things are possible to him. If all things are possible to him that believeth. This is the Bible. That if you believe, all things are possible. This is written in the Bible, in the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse 23. And Ayub was an epitome, a good example of proving to us that things are possible if you have a strong faith. Again, in the Bible, according to your faith, be it unto you. According to your faith, be it unto you. There is a hadith about this. There is a hadith, prophetic narration, or it's al-hadith al-Qudsi, a statement by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not written in the Quran. The meaning is from Allah, the phrasing is from the Prophet, but the Prophet attributes it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does anyone remember any hadith that has the same meaning? According to your faith, be it unto you. Yes. Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in al-hadith al-Qudsi, I will come to your rescue. I will help you. I will support you according to how you think of me. This is why we always tell people that when you invoke Allah, when you supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to be sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant you what you want. Don't entertain any doubts that maybe Allah will accept my prayer. Maybe Allah won't. I have committed a lot of sins. I've done a lot of things wrong. Maybe Allah is angry with me. He won't accept my supplication. No. When you make dua, be firm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer. And actually this is among the conditions of making dua. To be firm in your heart, to have faith, to have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is also in the Bible. So Norman says, believe. So it drives home the truth that faith moves mountains. And this is what actually Ayub alayhi salam projected in the way he was reacting to the affliction that he was suffering from. Again, Norman says, with a positive attitude, with experience, with a positive attitude, we experience pleasant and happy feelings. This brings brightness to the eyes, more energy and happiness. Our whole being broadcasts goodwill, happiness and success. Even our health is affected in a beneficial way. We walk tall, our voice is more powerful, and our body language shows the way we feel. So this is what he tells us about having faith and about having a positive attitude. It's good for your health. And actually, Ayub alayhi salam is a good example. It seems that this author read about the life of Ayub. He was always positive in his affliction. He didn't lose his temper. He didn't yell at anyone. He didn't complain to anyone. He didn't accuse anyone. He was firm in faith. And this also helped him in the process of healing. All of us know that yes, you can be given medication if you are suffering, but there is a psychological component that will help the process of healing be actuated. And this is to trust those who are treating you, and more importantly, to have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will be healed. So it reached a point when people would no longer employ her because they knew she was Prophet Ayyub's wife, and so they were afraid of being infected by his disease through interacting with her. So we said before, she was serving as a maid, getting some money to feed her husband and to buy food for herself. But when people came to know that he was suffering, they were afraid of infection. So they stopped employing her. So from where now would she get money to feed her husband and herself? They were so desperate to get something to eat. So therefore, when it reached a point that nobody willed to give her a job, she went to some daughters of the elite of that society and offered to sell them one of her braids in order to buy some good and nutritious food. For those who are not familiar with braids, these are the braids. So she had some braids, she sold one of them to the daughters of the elite in the society in order to buy some good and nutritious food. So it says good and nutritious food. So when she took the food to Ayub, ignoring it, he asked her, "From where did you get this food?" She replied, "I served some people in order to buy it." Now Ayub was desperate for food. He would have eaten it quickly. Probably he was very hungry. But before eating the food, he asked, "From where did it come?" What do we learn from this? So he is desperate. He's in need of food. First, because he was hungry. Second, in order to help the process of healing when we're sick. And actually there is a quote which goes, if you can't eat food as medicine, you will eat medicine as food. So nutritious food is medicine. It helps in the process of healing. So when someone is sick, when someone is ill, medicine isn't enough. We have also to give him or her nutritious food. So, why did Ayub ignore the food and ask from where did it come before eating it? Does anyone know why?
See if it
Yes,
was
it's,
halal.
beg your pardon?
See if it was halal, if she got it
The correct way.
the correct way.
He wanted to be sure if
That she didn't get it in the wrong way.
she didn't get the food illicitly. Yes, you're right. Yeah, and actually there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which was narrated by Abu Bakr Siddiq and Jabir ibn Abdullah. It says, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال كل جسد نبت من سحت فالنار أولى به. كل جسد نبت من سحت فالنار أولى به. صححه الألباني في صحيح الجامع. So the translation is everybody, not everybody, every flesh which grows being nourished with unlawful food, then the fire is more appropriate for it. So your body, your flesh, if it grows up being nourished by unlawful food, then it's more appropriate to be burnt in the hellfire. In other words, Ayyub alayhi salam did not want to eat something which was haram. He wanted to know the source of the food. From where did she get the money to buy the food? He is a prophet. He is a messenger. He cannot nourish himself with something which is haram. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, إن روح القدس نفث في روعي أن نفسا لن تموت حتى تستكمل أجلها وتستوعب رزقها فاتقوا الله وأجملوا في الطلب ولا يحملن أحدكم استبطاء الرزق أن يطلبه بمعصية الله فإن الله تعالى لا ينال ما عنده إلا بطاعته. The translation is, indeed, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, indeed the Holy Spirit, alluding to Angel Gabriel, revealed to me that no one will die until he completes his lifespan and gets his sustenance in full measure. So no one will die. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had predetermined that you will live for 70 years, it's 70 years. You can't die before that and you can't die after that. You will not be delayed even for 1 minute. So when your time comes, you will go. 2, if Allah had predetermined you will be a rich person, you will get $10 million, $20 million, whatever He had predetermined for you, you will not die until you get it in full measure. So fear Allah and seek your livelihood honorably. So the Prophet says, fear Allah and seek your livelihood honorably. Hence, none among you should be compelled by the delay of his sustenance to seek it in disobedience to Allah. So you say, I've been waiting for my sustenance which Allah promised, it's not coming. Let me steal, let me lie, let me cheat, let me do this and that. So do not be compelled by circumstances to seek your sustenance unlawfully. For indeed, whatever is with Allah cannot be received except by obedience to Him. So you can't get what is with Allah except by obedience to Him. So Ayyoub alayhi salam was also teaching us this, which was confirmed by the Prophet ﷺ, that although he needed food badly, but he wanted to know the source of this food. This is a lesson to us, especially the men. If your wife isn't working, you have to ask, from where did she get the food? If you have daughters, they're not working, they come up with some food, they give you some money, ask from where? Your children, ask them from where? Did they get the money? Because they might steal from somewhere and then bring you the money, you eat it, it's a problem for you. So you have to always ask from where the money came from where the food came from, so that you are sure you're feeding yourself with something which is lawful.
What if you're having dinner or something, someone invites you to dinner?
Beg your pardon?
If you're invited to dinner by someone, would you have to ask that same question?
Okay, actually, this is a good question. You are invited to dinner.
Yeah.
By someone, probably a friend. Now, from the Islamic point of view, we judge people according to what we see. We judge people according to what they tell us. We don't judge people with regard to what's in their hearts. So, according to the Sunnah in Islam, it's recommended in Islam that if someone invites you, you accept the invitation. This is one of his rights. If someone invites you, to accept the invitation. So in such a situation, it's not your responsibility to ask from where the food came from. But with regard to your family members, the people that you know, that you can talk to, because if he's just a friend or an acquaintance, even if you ask him, he might lie to you. So you just go there, you just pray to Allah, okay, I'm going because I want to honor the invitation of this person, but you don't ask questions because he might be offended by the questions.
But in restaurants and things that you're not sure about its origin or the way that it's being prepared, is it your duty to establish that before?
Yeah, especially, for example, if I am a Muslim, I go to a society where majority of the people eat pork. If someone invites me...
I understand the pork part, I'm talking about the way the meat is prepared.
For example, I know someone who is a drug dealer, or someone sells alcohol. He has restaurants where they sell alcohol, and this person invites me. So if I know that this person deals in illicit business transactions, then it's my right to question where the food came from. Yeah, if you suspect him. But if you don't have any you don't have any suspicion about this person, you can go and order the invitation.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you get some doubts over there, you can always ask questions, indirect questions. So to be
if I go to a restaurant, for example, say Europe or whatever, outside of a Muslim society, as a Muslim, would I be obliged to question if it was halal?
Yes.
I have to.
When I went to the US, when I was in the UK, I used to ask. And actually in the US, I used to walk about 2 kilometers to find a restaurant where they serve halal food. And they were happy to tell you, it's halal, not halal. And actually, in some restaurants, when they bring the menu, it would be written there. It says it halal. There is halal food. So if you are in a society whereby people do not necessarily serve halal food, then you have to ask questions.
Okay.
To be on the safe side. So there are some quotes here about nutritious food. When we learn to eat properly, we begin to rebuild our bodies and to fulfill our purpose on this planet to grow in health, creativity, wisdom, and compassion. By a non-Muslim, Dr. Ern. So when we learn to eat properly, we begin to rebuild our bodies and to fulfill our purpose on this planet to grow in health, creativity, wisdom, and compassion. Now, it depends on what you do or on what you want. If, for example, someone has problems forgetting things, there are some suggestions. If you always forget, eat this and that. So food is very important in different aspects of our lives. If you want to be physically active, food is important. If you want to be creative, food is important. So what do we get? Where did we get this clue from? From the wife of Ayyoub, because she was giving him nutritious food. There is another quote: "We are indeed much more than what we eat, but what we eat can nevertheless help us to be much more than what we are." So what we eat will make you healthier, will make you think better, and will strengthen your immune system. So nutritious food is very important, even from the Islamic point of view. So here, there is another quote: "The art of medicine consists in amusing the patient, while nature cures the disease." The art of medicine consists in amusing the patient, while nature cures the disease. I was listening to BBC. It's a program called Health Check 2 weeks ago. And they were discussing the benefits of going to a country whereby there are beautiful sceneries. So you see lush plantations, vegetations, flowers, rivers, lakes. They said this does not only make you happy, but it boosts your immune system. So we have people who travel from one country to another. Not only do they enjoy nature, but nature is important. And this is why some people in affluent countries, when they retire, they go to developing countries where the nature is good and live over there until they die, because they have discovered this. So we should go back to nature. So to make matters worse, she didn't find any more to employ her the following day. Therefore, she sold another braid in return for food and took the food to Ayyoub. Ayyoub showed his disapproval and swore not to eat it until she told him from where exactly she got it. So the first time, she sold one braid. Another time, she didn't find any employment. So Ayyoub says, "I swear by Allah, I won't eat the food until you tell me exactly from where did you get it." So what happened? She then removed the scarf off her head, and when he saw her head shaved, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what do we learn from this? Ayyoub alayhi salam, the first time she told him, she served the people, then he ate the food. Now this time, he swears, he says, "I swear, I won't eat the food until you tell me from where exactly did you get it." She didn't speak, she just uncovered her hair, he saw it shaved, and he invoked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This time, he said, "No, this is too much, let me pray to Allah." What do we learn from this?
His humanity.
His humanity. So he was concerned about the efforts of his wife and about the physical features of his wife, because hair is very important to the wife. So how would the society talk about her when they see she doesn't have hair? What will they say? So this raised an alarm in his heart about his wife. What else? Yes, sister?
And to a woman, hair is your beauty. It's
So
considered
hair
beauty.
is part of beauty for the woman. So he also wanted to see her with her hair. So when it reached this point that she had to sell her hair for food, then he had to pray to Allah. Now, she sold her braids. She no longer has hair. What next would she sell in order to get food? So this was all what she heard. Everything had gone. So what else? He became very sad. And at this point, although at the beginning he said, I can patiently persevere for another 70 years, but when it reached the point of his wife selling her braids and her hair is shaved, he said, no, this is too much. Let me now resort to my Creator to help me. So what else do you learn from this? Yeah, he showed sympathy with her. Number two, he as a man, he used to be happy to look at her hair. Now the hair is gone. Another thing, what will she sell next? Now she sold her hair. What next? What else do you learn from this? Another lesson is, he as a man, he was the one who was supposed to work hard to bring the bread on the table. And now it has turned in reverse. Now it's the woman working hard to bring the food, yet it's the responsibility of the man. So he was thinking, how come? I am a man, I'm supposed to work and feed her, and now she's the one doing the job. So all this together made him pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did he say? Allah tells us, وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَ رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. And mention as well the tidings of Job, Ayub. Behold, he cried out to his Lord, indeed unbearable ailment has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Now Ayub did not pray directly to Allah that, Allah, I am suffering, I'm asking you, I'm beseeching you to remove the suffering from me. What did he say? He praised Allah. He said, وَإِذْ نَادَ رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. So if an ailment has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. So he didn't say, remove it, heal me. Yes, brother.
Really, here it was a supplication more than a prayer.
It was a supplication more than a prayer.
This is how I understand from the Holy Quran.
Yes. So this was a supplication. Why? Because at the beginning he says, "Inni massani yadur." So I am unbearable ailment has touched me. In other words, you know very well that an ailment has touched me. I am suffering, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. So anta arhamur rahimin. So he is alluding to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful. He doesn't want to see his servants suffer. He would always help them. And he was praising Allah. Arhamur rahimin. This is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you mention your problem and then you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we said before, dua is divided into two categories. Does anyone remember any one of them? Two categories, two segments. There is dua mas'ala, when you supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala either to give you something that you want, or to ward off a problem, or to remove you from suffering. So this is mas'ala, you are requesting Allah. And there is dua thana. So you are praising Allah, and actually by praising Allah, you are supplicating to Him, you are invoking Him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very happy when you praise Him. He likes to praise Him. So Ayub was praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala using the proper attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala depending on the condition in which he was. This is, you are the most merciful of the merciful, have mercy on me, I've suffered for a long time. So now people are asking, what was the disease that Ayub was suffering from? People could be asking this. We've been talking about an affliction, an ailment, but we didn't specify the disease. What was it? Mujahid said that Prophet Ayyoub was the first person to suffer from smallpox. However, majority of the interpreters of the Quran and historians are against this opinion. They say Prophet Ayyoub did not suffer from smallpox, and there are some fatwas about this. Majority of the scholars maintain that the prophet narration which spoke about his trials and illness did not specify the disease that he suffered from. So the prophetic narrations that were talking about the affliction of Ayub did not specify the disease that he suffered from. Moreover, there is no any religious textual evidence that proves he suffered from any disgusting or repulsive disease. Rather, they just mentioned that he suffered from an affliction in his body. So they didn't mention the type of the disease. The Quran didn't specify, and the prophetic narrations of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not specify. So in the fatwa, one of the fatwas, it says, it is asserted thus in this fatwa, it doesn't necessarily mean that when people decide to abandon someone and thus abstain from interacting with him, that he suffers from a contagious or repulsive disease. So people might infer from the fact that people abandoned him and they took him to a dump site that maybe he was suffering from a contagious disease. This fatwa says it's not the case. Rather, it is customary of human beings, except a select few, that when a person in prosperity ends up in adversity, or when a rich person turns poor, people would abandon him. So if someone was a wealthy person having high position, he would have a lot of supporters. But when the wealth goes, people would abandon him because there is nothing that would make them go to this person. They're not going to benefit from him anyway, except a select few who are sincere. And in most situations, those few who would still be attached to this person are people whom he didn't care about even. So those whom he served the most, those who were nearer to him, when he suffers, they abandon him. Those whom he didn't care are the ones who come to his rescue. I have many examples to prove this. I know a family whereby the man was wealthy, he ignored his wife, he married other women, and when he got ill, the other women who married him because of money, they divorced him. The woman whom, the first wife whom he was neglecting, is the one still taking care of him. So the ones who enjoyed the wealth, they run away. The one whom he neglected is now taking care of him. Yes, sister?
So there's two camps of thought. That one, that he was physically, his flesh was falling away from
Yeah,
his
that's
body.
true. That's true. The flesh
That's
was
true.
falling off. That's true. But
Then this second camp of thought saying that he possibly didn't have a physical illness.
okay, what they mean is a contagious disease, because there is a point whereby people wouldn't employ his wife because they were afraid of infection, to be infected by the disease. So it's true the flesh was falling off, but it was not a contagious, repulsive disease.
And maybe it was specific only to him.
Yeah, and
Maybe,
yes, this
It was a small
is
point.
what many
Just
scholars
for
say
him.
it was specific to him.
Yeah.
So we can't say it was repulsive,
Yeah.
it was contagious, but the fact that the flesh was falling off his body, that's true. So rather it's customary that people, when someone was rich and then he becomes poor, people would always abandon him. And this is the number of the fatwa is here. So now it reaches a point whereby his own brothers are accusing him. Abdullah bin Ubayd bin Umar said, Ayub alayhi salam had two brothers. As customary, they went one day to visit him. They were the only ones visiting him with his wife, after he was abandoned by his family members and friends. So only two brothers and his wife would continuously visit him. So one day they went to visit him, according to Abdullah bin Ubayd, but did not get closer to him because of a bad smell that emanated from his body. So they stood at a distance. Now, this issue of a bad smell could be questionable because he was already on a dump site. Maybe it was a smell of trash, and his wife was already putting trash and wood ash on his body in order to remove the bad smell. So maybe the smell that came was from the surrounding area, not necessarily from him. So one of them said to another, had Allah known of any goodness in Ayub, he wouldn't have tried and afflicted him with such a suffering. So they were saying, if Ayub was a good person, if Allah knew that Ayub was a righteous person, he wouldn't have allowed his prophet to suffer in such a way. When Ayub heard of this false statement, he became very sad and more concerned than before. Then he said, so this is a time when, again, Ayub became more concerned. When his brothers were accusing him that maybe he had committed a sin, there was no good in him that Allah knew of. So what do we learn from this? So when his own brothers, who were always visiting him, started accusing him, this is the time when he became more concerned. All the time, he was patient. He didn't care about what others said. But when his own brothers, flesh and blood, started accusing him, this is when he became more concerned. Any answers to this? Why do you think? Now he's concerned. When his brothers, who have been always visiting him all that time, when they began accusing him. What do you learn from this? Any answers?
You know, they weren't supposed to give any moral support.
So the brothers, family members are the ones who are supposed to give him moral support, to be with him no matter what happens to him. And now they have joined others to speak evil on him. So it hurt him, because people always say, majority of the people, if not all of them, that I rather get mistreated by a stranger rather than being mistreated by my own brother. So if you're mistreated by your own brother or your own sister, it feels bad, worse than being mistreated by a stranger. A stranger, you might understand it, but your flesh, your blood and flesh, when they mistreat you, those who are supposed to protect you, to be on your side, when they abandon you, so you feel worse when it reaches this point. But how was his reaction? Did he abuse them? Did he speak negatively of him? He was just sad. What did he say? He said, "Oh Allah, if you know that I have never spent a night with a full stomach while I knew where a hungry person was, then I beseech you to prove me right." What does he mean here? Oh Allah, if you knew that I never slept with a full stomach when I knew where a hungry person was, I beseech you to prove me right, that there is nothing I have done wrong.
Yeah.
So what do we learn from this? What does he allude to?
He's questioning himself on his, he wants confirmation that he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah, so he is mentioning things that has been doing. He's feeding the people. If, for example, he has some food and he sees someone hungry, he would give the food to that person. This also alludes to the importance of feeding those who are hungry. Feeding those who are hungry. So Ayub says, when I was wealthy, I was doing good deeds. I was helping the people. I was feeding the hungry. There is nothing wrong that I did. And actually people have the mentality that when you suffer, maybe you are cursed. Maybe Allah is angry with you. Maybe this and that. And this isn't the case. Allah can try you in different ways. As He tried Ayub, who was a righteous person, a wealthy person before, but not arrogant. So Ayub is saying that, "Oh Allah, I used to feed poor people. I wouldn't eat to fill my stomach when someone didn't have anything to eat. So if I used to do this, prove me right that there is nothing wrong I have done to warrant your wrath." So a voice came from heaven confirming that he was firm on the truth, which both of them heard clearly, both of his brothers. Then he, Ayub, said, "O Allah, if you know that I never possessed 2 shirts, while I knew of a place where a naked person was, I beseech you to prove me right." So again, he's alluding to some of the good acts that he was doing when he was wealthy, that he was feeding, he was clothing those who didn't have clothes. So wherever he walked and he found out that someone was needing clothes, even if it was his own shirt, he would take it off and give it to that person in order to cover himself. Again, a voice came from heaven proving his right, which both of them heard very clearly. Then he, Ayub, said, "O Allah, by your might." Then he fell on his face in prostration. He made sujood, saying, "By your might, I will never lift my head until you remove this suffering from me." So after mentioning the good deeds that he was doing before the affliction, now he made sujood and said, "Allah, I won't raise my head until you relieve me of this suffering." What do we learn from this?
It's duty,
Beg your pardon?
having hope.
To have hope. Yeah, so we should always have hope no matter how we're suffering.
And then
What
the
else?
only salvation is through Allah.
So the only salvation is through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else?
Conviction.
Conviction.
Yeah, I think it's more than hope.
Mhm.
It's pure conviction that Allah will.
Yeah, so he was
Yeah.
purely convinced. He had firm faith that Allah is going to rescue him. This is why he said, "I won't raise my head until you relieve me of my pain." He was totally convinced. He had firm faith in Allah that Allah will come to his rescue. So what do we learn? He says, "I used to feed the hungry. I used to provide clothes to those who didn't have. So by virtue of this, prove me right." What do we learn from this? Yes, brother.
That means, when he was saying this, that he reached the maximum limits of debate.
So that he tried the best when he was wealthy. He was using his wealth in a good way. He was helping the people. So if these people accuse him that there's no good in him, that's not right. He was a good person. He was serving the people and he was doing it for the sake of Allah. Maybe they didn't see it, but Allah was saying it. So he says, if you know, because Allah knows what's in the hearts. People might not know the good that you are doing, but Allah knows it. And according to the Quran, Allah will not let you lose the reward of the good deeds that you do, whether you are a believer or not.
But
Whatever you do.
it doesn't matter the judgment of other people. The only judgment that
yes.
matters is the judgment.
The judgment of others doesn't matter. What matters is the judgment of Allah. Because Allah knows what's in the hearts. And actually, if you remember, there is a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. 3 people who were traveling at night. And it rained, so they sought refuge, or they sought a shelter in a cave. Then while in the cave, a rock came and blocked the entrance. So they were not able to go out. What did they do? Does anyone remember? What did they do? According to the hadith, this is a prophetic narration in Sahih al-Bukhari. Prophet Muhammad told his companions about 3 people who were traveling at night. So it started raining. They sought a shelter in a cave, and while in the cave, a rock came and blocked the entrance of the cave. So they were unable to get out of the cave. Does anyone remember what they did? Yes, brother?
One of them, he said, God, if I was good with my parents, please open this gate a little bit.
Yeah, so they said, they agreed with one another that let's mention the good things that we did for the sake of Allah, seeking His pleasure, and ask Him to help us from this problem, that we are good people, we are righteous people. So one of them, as the brother said, was taking milk to his parents, and he wouldn't allow his wife and children to drink from the milk before his parents. So one day he found them asleep. He didn't want to disturb them. He waited until they woke up. He gave them the milk. So he said, "Oh Allah, if I did this for the purpose of your pleasure, please help us." So the rock moved a little bit. Then another one, what did he say? What did he say? Another one used to have a laborer who was working for him. And this laborer went before getting his wages, his salary. So he invested the salary of this laborer, bought a lot of cows, bought some land. So when this laborer came back asking for his wages, this man, this master who employed him before, said, all this land belongs to you. All these cows belong to you. He said, you see, don't mock me, don't ridicule me. The master said, yes, it's right, they belong to you. So the man said, if I did that exclusively seeking your pleasure, oh Allah, help us. So the rock moved. The third one, I want to mention it because we have children here. So it's allowed in Islam to beseech Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to rescue you by mentioning the deeds that you did in order to please Him, in which you were sincere. It's allowed. Now, is it allowed to say, by honor of Prophet Muhammad, help us? Is it allowed in Islam? When you are in a dire situation to pray to Allah, by honor of Prophet Muhammad, it isn't allowed. It's only allowed using the names and attributes of Allah and the good deeds that you performed sincerely for the sake of Allah. So Ayyoub alayhi salam did this, that he was feeding the hungry and clothing the naked. Now, this is a very important hadith. I hope all of us will keep it in mind. Abu Huraira narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayra yusib bihi." Abu Huraira narrated that Allah's Messenger said, if Allah wants to do good to someone, He afflicts him with trials. So Allah wants you to be successful after some time. But before that, He will bring a lot of trials and afflictions to see how you react. If you patiently persevere and you go back to Him during this period of trial, Allah will open the gates of success to you. But if you don't, it's to your detriment. What do we learn from this hadith? It's authentic hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. What do we learn from it? So if Allah wants to do good to somebody, He afflicts him with trials. So first, you'll undergo a lot of trials and tribulations. And after that, the gates of success will be open. What do we learn from this hadith?
It's the same with your life.
Beg your pardon?
It's the same with your life.
It's the same with your life.
All of the trials throughout your life, you will be afflicted with trials. It's the test to at the end of that life to the ascension to paradise. All of these trials and tribulations.
Yeah, what the brother says,
throughout.
those tribulations and trials, they will bring you a lot of rewards from Allah. Even if you don't prosper on earth after that, you will be in the highest level in paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Those who patiently persevere will get their rewards without measure. Allah will not count countless rewards on the day of judgment. But before even the day of judgment, you will be rewarded here in different ways. Yes, brother.
You can look at this at two levels.
Yes.
On a spiritual level, yes, you know, in the hereafter, but also on a more simplistic level in life. You know, the stronger person is the one who has had to go through a tough learning process.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whether it's on the street or, you know, generally in his job or at home. You know, hardships come, and if you can overcome those hardships, it makes you stronger and hopefully better.
Yeah. So the hardships.
People who are strong and do overcome, that is their reward, that they become a stronger person. So
Yeah.
that's on one level. Of course, on the spiritual level.
Yeah,
which you
yeah.
mentioned.
So those hardships make you stronger, more experienced, and also they give you confidence. You know, when you've been suffering a lot and you were able to go through the problems and you were successful, it gives you confidence. Now this confidence doesn't only help you, it also helps those who are with you. When you retire, for example, you'll be sitting in your diwaniya, in your home, people coming to you complaining about this and that problem, and you will share. You will give them tips on how to overcome the problems. The same thing happened to me. I did this and that. So you'll be sharing your knowledge to those people, and by sharing this knowledge, this experience, you are rewarded by Allah. So the more they employ your ideas in solving their problems, the more you get the reward, even if you die. This is also part of al-ilm alladhi yuntafa'u bihi, al-ilm al-nafi'. So as according to a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when someone dies, everything ceases to benefit him except three things. One of them is al-ilm alladhi yuntafa'u bihi, beneficial knowledge. So this is part of it. When you go through trials and tribulations, you pass through them, you become successful in the end, and then you share your experiences with others, and they employ your knowledge in their lives, so you get rewards. So
Yeah,
the more they
interesting.
continue using your knowledge, the more you get rewards.
The philosophical story, I can't remember it verbatim, but it's called the dilemma of Hercules.
The dilemma of?
Hercules.
Yeah, okay.
He's on a journey to the sea, and during the journey he reaches a crossroads. And at the crossroads you can go left or right. Both roads take him to the end of his journey, but on the right side there's a lady, and her name is Virtue. And she is plainly dressed and not attractive, and says, "Come, Hercules, this way. And if you come this way, the road will be tough, and it will be full of tribulations and trials. And it will be a difficult journey, but you will reach your destination." And on the other side there's a lady whose name is Lust or something. And she says, "Come this way." And Hercules, the journey will be easy and pleasurable and full of reward and fun, debauchery. And you'll reach the end of your journey the same way you will by that road. And the dilemma is, which road should Hercules take? And then when I ask that question to people around me, a lot of them will say, "Oh, we'll take the easy road, it gets you there in the end." But what kind of person does it make you when you get there?
Yeah, I actually, if you ask me,
Vice, that's it.
Yeah.
Virtue.
yeah, if you ask me, I would take the difficult one.
This is
Because from experience, what comes easy goes easy.
and this is what you're saying here. This is what I read in these things, these trials that put you on tests for you to continue to be faithful, to continue to overcome the difficulties and to keep your faith.
Yeah, actually, I have so many examples. I will just share one. I know someone who had two sons. He was a wealthy person. He used to pamper one of his sons and he neglected the other. So one was given everything that he wanted, the other one was neglected. So the one who was neglected decided to depend on himself and not to depend on his father. When the father died, because the wealth was, he had taken a lot of loans, they came and misappropriated and confiscated everything. So the son who was pampered by the father remained penniless without money. And the other one who was depending on himself became affluent. And this was now depending on his brother, who was always neglected by the father. This is a true story. So, and there are many stories like this. Anyway, Ayub alayhi salam, he suffered at the beginning, but the suffering went. So for how long did Ayub suffer from that illness? This is another question. There are various opinions about the duration of his illness and affliction. For example, Wahab ibn Munabbih said that he suffered for exactly 3 years. On the other hand, Anas bin Malik said that he continued in that painful situation for about 7 years and some months, during which he was thrown on a dump site, that, as we said before, that belonged to the children of Israel. He was left there for quite some time, during which some moving creatures would pass over his body until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieved him of that suffering and gave him abundant rewards for his patience. This is Anas bin Malik. On the other hand, Humayd said he suffered for 18 years. So this is actually a true opinion because it's confirmed by a hadith. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in a hadith that was narrated by Anas bin Malik, he said, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن نبي الله أيوب لبث به بلاؤه 18 سنة فرفضه القريب والبعيد إلا رجلين من إخوانه كان يغدوان إليه ويروحان صححه الألباني في سلسلة صحيحة. So the translation is, Anas bin Malik narrated that the Messenger of Allah said, indeed Allah's Prophet Ayyoub remained in his affliction for 18 years. During that period of time, both his close and distant relatives rejected him and thus distanced themselves from him, except 2 men among his brothers who would visit him early morning and late evening. After visiting him morning and evening for quite some time, one of those 2 brothers said to another, you know, by Allah, that Ayub has committed a very grave sin that no one has ever committed before. The other one inquired, and what's that sin? He replied, since 18 years, Allah hasn't been kind to him to relieve him of his affliction. So when they once went to visit Ayub, the latter, the other brother, would not control himself, concealing his brother's accusation. So he mentioned that to Ayub, that you know what his brother had said about Ayub. So upon hearing that, Ayub said, I don't know exactly what you are talking about, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows very well that I used to pass by 2 men who were quarreling with one another, and in the process they would mention his name. Therefore, I would return home to my house, offer some sacrifices to expiate for their sins, being urged by intense dislike of mentioning the name of Allah in anything far from the truth. So Ayub, among his good things that he used to do before the affliction, if for example he was walking, he found 2 people quarreling with one another, and one swears falsely in the name of Allah to support his argument, Ayub, when reaching home, he would offer a sacrifice and ask Allah to forgive them because he didn't like anyone to use the name of Allah falsely. And this actually was between him and Allah. He didn't tell them that, you know, I offered a sacrifice. So what do we learn from this? So his brothers are accusing him, one of the brothers is accusing him that he has committed a very grave sin. This is why he is suffering. And he says, oh Allah, you know very well, and the story goes on. So what do we learn from this? So people whom he doesn't know, they are not related to him, he's not expecting any reward from them, he's not expecting any appreciation from them, but he goes and offers a sacrifice in order to ask Allah to forgive them for the sin of using his name in a wrong way. So what do we learn from this? There are a lot of lessons. First of all, when we are quarreling or when we want to convince someone, we shouldn't use the name of Allah. You know, sometimes, for example, you want to buy a watch. The vendor tells you it costed him 30 KD. You tell him, no, give me a discount, 25. He says, Wallahi, I bought it at 30 KD. Yet he's lying. So he's using the name of Allah to make money illicitly. And this happens a lot. And Allah warns us against swearing by his name falsely. We shouldn't play around with his name. We have to respect his name. So Ayub is concerned about people whom he doesn't know who are using the name of Allah falsely. He goes to slaughter a sacrifice to ask Allah to forgive them, people whom he doesn't know. And actually, in the book that I told you about the power of positive thinking, Vincent said that whenever he travels on a metro and he sees someone suffering, he would see a person, and this person from his facial expressions would seem to be suffering. He says he would always pray for them, although he knows he's not going to meet with them. He says this prayer helps him to become a positive person. He isn't a Muslim, so he's traveling by bus, or he's on a metro or a train. He sees someone from the window, and this person looks miserable. He prays for him. He's not expecting any reward from that person. He doesn't even expect he will meet with that person, yet he prays for him. And this is a non-Muslim, a Christian, Vincent. So this is what Ayub would do, to offer a sacrifice in order for those people to be forgiven for the sin of using the name of Allah falsely. Now, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about praying for your brother, praying for someone whom you don't know. What does it say? Does anyone remember a hadith of the Prophet about praying for someone? So you're just walking, you find someone, or even if someone is affluent, you pray to Allah, to give him, to make him more successful. So what does the hadith say?
Pray for yourself.
So the hadith says that if you pray for someone, you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either to make him more successful or to ward off problems from him, the malaika, the angels would say, Ameen walaka bil mithl. May Allah accept your supplication and give you the same. So by praying for another, you are actually praying for yourself. So by giving sacrifices, Ayub was getting rewards of offering sacrifices. Ayub was getting prayers of those people who benefited from the sacrifice. He was also getting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by respecting the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not allowing anyone to use Allah's name falsely, and thus you offer a sacrifice. Allah appreciated that. And that was between him and Allah. So this is a lesson to us that whatever you do, if you do it for the sake of Allah, when you are in a dire situation where you need Allah's help, Allah will be there to help you. So, another quote of Norman, he says, the way to happiness, keep your heart free from hate, your mind from worry. So keep your heart free from hate, your mind free from worry, live simply, expect little, give much, scatter sunshine, think of others. So these are among the factors that will bring you happiness. And if you observe them, keeping in mind the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are rewarded by Allah. So Ayub didn't encounter his brother, why did you say this? No, he just prayed to Allah. So what do we learn from this? So he heard his brother accusing him that, he had committed a major sin and this is why he was suffering. Did he go to encounter his brother? Why did you say this? You are a fool, do this and that? No. He rather prayed to Allah. So what lessons do we deduce from this? So Ayub didn't go and encounter his brother, asking him why he accused him. He didn't abuse his brother, he didn't insult his brother, but rather he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mentioning the good deeds that he was doing honestly and sincerely, seeking the pleasure of Allah. So what lesson do we derive from this? Any ideas?
To be gentle to your relatives.
Beg your pardon?
To be gentle with your
To be
relatives.
gentle to your
no matter
relatives.
what.
Don't be rude to them, no matter what, because being gentle to them is an act of worship. So even if they mistreat you, you treat them well. Two wrongs cannot make a right. So it's very important. Yes, sister?
Instead of confronting someone else, just pray to Allah.
Yeah.
He will show us the truth.
Yeah, so instead of confronting someone, you pray to Allah, and Allah will will prove you right in one way or the other. I don't know if I shared this story with you. I always give Friday sermons in mosques. And sometimes when you talk, you look at facial expressions of the people. Some people will be nodding their heads. Some people would be smiling. Some would come to you to appreciate your talk. But I noticed in one of the mosques, there was one man who would sit in the front row. For good 5 years, he was not nodding, not smiling, not even showing any expression of being affected by the sermon. So I would question myself, why? But I just said to myself, so long as I did it for the sake of Allah, I did my best, Allah will be on my side. After good 5 years, this man approached me. He said, you know, Mr. Hassan, I am very sorry. I used to be jealous of you because of the way you speak Arabic and English. Please forgive me, and now I would like to learn from you. After good 5 years, he himself approached me. I didn't go to him, I didn't say anything, he just came to me. So sometimes people have their own ulterior motives. So as you said, you pray to Allah, you continue doing what you are doing. And actually, they say in Arabic, إِرْضَاءُ النَّاسِ غَايَةٌ لَا تُدْرَكُ. Can anyone translate it? إِرْضَاءُ النَّاسِ غَايَةٌ لَا تُدْرَكُ. You can't please everyone. You can't please everyone. Even if you do your best, there will be people who will either be intimidated by your presence, who will be jealous of you, will be envious. There will be a lot of people who will have their own ulterior motives. But what you do is you concentrate on what you're doing, you do it in the best way, and in your intention, you say, I'm doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think I should end with this. Now relief comes. Next time we'll begin with how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did save Ayyoub, and then he gave him back his wealth and family members. He became even better than when he was suffering. And then we will deduce a lot of lessons from that. Any questions? Yes, sister.
In the beginning, you wrote when his wife said, "If you pray," why don't you just pray to Allah instead of saying "if"?
Oh,
If you pray,
that's a good question. Actually, she knew that he was a prophet. He was a messenger. He knew more about praying to Allah. He knew more. He was in constant communication with Allah. So she suggested maybe he could have prayed and didn't tell her. So it was a suggestion whereby she had an impression that maybe he prayed, maybe not. So she was just suggesting to him. Now, if you read the book entitled "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus," has anyone read it?
Yeah.
Has anyone read it? That, you know, especially the men, they become angry when his wife tells him to do something which he was planning to do. So for example, the man was planning to do something, and then you come and say, why don't you do this? He would be angry, saying, you know, I was planning to do it. Why do you tell me? So according to even women, some women, for example, you have something in mind, you were planning to do it, and then your husband tells you to do it. You feel bad, right? So maybe in her heart, she thought maybe he has already supplicated to Allah, so she was just suggesting to him. And by suggesting to him, if you could, I suggest you could supplicate to Allah to relieve you of this pain. Because she trusted him, he was a righteous person, she knew that he was always supplicating to Allah, so she didn't want to tell him something that he had already done, so it came as a suggestion. Yes, brother?
This story, or this narration of the Prophet Ayyoub, so it demonstrates extreme trial and patience. It's a story of a prophet. And all the prophets have gone through trials. And these are for lessons for everyone else. But if we come to practical life, when people are in extreme destitution or desperation, you know, like I don't know, war zone or something like that. Now, yes, integrity is very important when it comes to questioning the source of where this meal came from. But is there an allowance for human beings, normal, weak human beings, that where you have to protect your family or in extreme desperation, and there is an allowance, and there is a difference between a prophet and a normal guy in that situation? Do you see that?
Yeah, actually there is something in Usul al-Fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence. They say, al-daruratu tubihu al-mahdurat. So if you are in a dire situation, you don't have any other solution other than doing what's haram, then you are allowed. For example, you're traveling, you didn't get any food, you didn't get anything to eat, you're starving, you are allowed to eat pork. But don't overeat it. So you eat a portion that will sustain your life, that will keep you alive. Or if you are extremely thirsty, you didn't get clean water, you didn't get anything to drink, you're dying, you are allowed to drink alcohol. So actually, saving life here takes priority. No matter what you do, the priority here is to save life. Anything else comes after saving life. Even the Prophet ﷺ, Ammar ibn Yasir, when he was tortured by the Quraysh, they forced him to say negative statements about the Prophet. Then he went to the Prophet, he said, you know, I was forced under torture to insult you. So the Prophet said, how do you feel in your heart? He said, I have firm faith in Allah and in what you say, but I was forced by circumstances. So the Prophet ﷺ said, In adu fa'ud. So if they force you again to insult me, do it to save your life. Yeah, any other questions or comments? Okay, Jazakumullah khair. On Monday there is no tafsir class, and you know we're in the festive mood during the time of celebration. What I would advise you is on the 25th and 26th, don't venture outside, especially going to areas like Hawali, Salmiya. If you can, just stay indoors. Okay, Jazakumullah khair.